We're back. Episode 10. I'm back after a week off. I missed you guys.
Oh, we missed you too.
I was kidding. No, I was kidding. It was a great show. Looking forward to another great week to spread the info on Station C with you guys. So it's another sunny day. The rain has stopped.
Yay.
Am I coming through okay? I'm sorry, I'm a little far from the mic. You know, I'm rusty. Took a week off. So we are coming to you live, week 10, from the Star Hill at Dairy Market downtown, with myself, Nathan Wickline, introduce yourself.
Sarah
Messer.
from Station C and the Juice Laundry.
There we go. It's just that easy. It's just that easy.
Nailed it.
And I'm Eleanor Von Aken. I'm the general manager here at Dairy Market and a proud member of Station C and part of the C Chat podcast.
C-Chat podcast. 10 episodes.
10.
Who knew?
I know.
Who knew?
When you asked me to do this, I was like, sure, that'll never fly.
Yeah. We really thought you would say no, and then you just kept showing up. So it's kind of weird, but we're here now. So we're going to work with that. But this week we are joined by one of the members of the Founders Group. You know, we actually have 4 groups, getting ready to have 5, right?
Getting ready to have 5.
Getting ready to have 5 groups, so it's growing pretty fast. Bodi from H20 Disaster Services, is that correct?
Yes.
Bodi is the Founders Group. He has...
Good job.
Thanks, you. I felt good about that one. He's, like I said, he's with the Founders Group, has lunch with us on Thursdays at Beer Run.
Why don't you let Bodi tell us about Bodi?
Well, I'm going to.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, we go it just gets like this.
I know.
Okay, hey.
We took
Without
over.
further ado, Mr. Bodi, take it away and tell us all about yourself.
Bodi, and you got my name pronounced correctly. It's just Bodi, B-O-D-I, so that's great. Appreciate that.
No,
It's
no
probably
H.
one of the coolest names you can have.
It
for a
is.
guy.
I met a dog named Bodi once, but it was B-O-D-H-I.
See.
I
met some B-O-D-H-I
Yeah.
Bodis, and I've only met one Bodi in my life who spelled his name the way I do.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was
Who's the skier?
Bodi Miller.
Bodi
that's
Miller.
B-O-D-E, if I
See.
have that
Wow.
correct.
Nerd.
But
Do it with an E.
Yeah.
He does that. It's Bode.
Bode.
Anyway, sorry. But yeah, cool name. Love it.
well, thanks. I wish I had something to do with it. I absolutely nothing.
It's the name lottery, so you're good, man.
You're wearing it well.
But yeah, Bodi Wallace, I'm a co-owner. My wife owns, she should own more of the business than she does. 50% owner of H20 Disaster Services. We do water damage mitigation and mold remediation. We focus on customer service and that kind of stuff. But without going all into the business side of it yet, I can tell you a little bit about myself. So what would you like to know? Besides everything.
How long have you been doing this?
So I've been in this industry for, 2023, 5 years now.
Okay.
And we just started our 4th year in business out of Zion Crossroads. So we started there. I trained in Asheville and Southwest Virginia before I moved here. We moved here because of our family and UVA and the VIA. VIA is a thing, and we are a part of the VIA family, thankfully. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into the industry 5 years ago.
I was going to say, you told us a neat little story about your family and why you guys moved here, if you want to share some of that.
Yeah, so we lived kind of down in the sticks, so Southwest Virginia, and we have 2 children that have Down syndrome, and also they have autism. So we're like medically and, interesting in our family. I kind of call us a fruit salad family because we have all different kinds of things going on. But we moved here because of the university, Children's Hospital, and also because we later found out that the Virginia Institute for Autism also is like one of the best in the state.
Yeah, it really is.
And they've expanded too, and we didn't realize, but they've expanded to other areas besides just Charlottesville, and now they're really growing. And so anyway, we're really thankful to be in the community. We're really thankful for UVA and how they've helped us, all the specialists and things that kids come across and things, and also the Via family is like, we're like grafted in. We're like, oh, these are people we didn't know were our family, and here they are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a really great thing.
My son has autism and ADHD and all sorts of stuff. And my sister, who's also a clinical psychologist and actually works with children with different learning disabilities, developmental disabilities stuff, we always joke that our family has like every letter in the alphabet, right? Like if there's a letter to like represent some kind of autistic or, that kind of learning disability, we have it.
So we've got fruit salad and alphabet soup.
And alphabet soup.
Love it.
And it's great, because, a good diet we know that's healthy for us.
Yeah, very
right?
healthy.
And everybody needs exercise, everybody needs a good diet. And so, we could talk about diet too.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Just ask me the questions and I'll keep answering.
Have you found that starting your business has allowed you to be a bit more flexible for your family situation? In some ways, maybe.
Yeah, sometimes it's flexible. Like I need to help get my kids on the bus in the morning at 8 o'clock. So it's like, that's what we do. And I don't care what else is happening, that is happening at 8.
Yeah.
So everything else has to kind of come to a screeching halt at sometimes. But then there's other times where it's like something happens and it's like, we need to get on the phone, get a crew over here, there's things happening, or we've got to schedule something. So yeah, you have to be flexible.
Someone's basement's flooding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Basement, third floor, second floor, first floor, crawl space, whatever it is, it's pretty much, it all happens.
What is the thing that you get called for the most?
Water damage and results of water damage. And that's worded that way because microbial growth, mold is something that happens, just naturally with the high humidity we have here.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really hard, your emergency looks like this, and her emergency looks like that.
Right.
And,
Mine's worse. Just so you know.
it's your emergency, so it's depends on the day, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
So 5 years ago, you started this company, right?
5 years ago, I started in the industry.
In the industry, yeah.
We just started our 3rd year in business here in Zion Crossroads.
So
yes.
5 years, I'm sure you didn't, at 13 years old, you were saying, I can't wait to be a water remediation guy, right?
Yeah.
So what was the spark that got Bodi to say, this is an issue,
I want to go back to my career that I had before. This is my second career.
Yeah.
But to specifically answer your question, I got into water damage and mold kind of because I had a crawl space in the house that I was living in that I was like, oh, I can figure this out, because I was in the fire service and in building construction, and I was like,
Handy guy.
I got this. I'm a DIY, built a house, I can figure this out.
YouTube.
And then I kind of go down the rabbit hole, and it's like, well, no, it's actually a little more complicated if you want to do it the right way. You can go spray bleach, you can do whatever you think you might want to do, but really, the professionals in the industry, they don't do that. And so I was really interested, like, what do they do? And that became curious to me, and then I got interested, and I went to training and all that stuff. But to back up to like my first career, that kind of led me into like technical type work and stuff. And that was, I got interested as a volunteer firefighter in California. And I ended up becoming a volunteer and worked basically 26 years in the fire service in California and Nevada for local, state, and federal government.
Oh, wow. I
I was in wildland firefighting for 7 years in California. I worked for CDF and BLM and the Forest Service. And then I ended up moving to Nevada because that's the first full-time job that I had, and worked there in the desert, outside the desert, and wildland fires. And then I moved into town when I got a structure fire department job, and then I was there for 18 years until I got hurt. And then, then it's like, I don't know if you guys know any police officers or firefighters, but it's really, really, really challenging when someone tells you you can't do your job anymore.
Yeah.
You can't do what you've been trained to do. You kind of like, well, where do you go with that? And
Right.
so as a firefighter, I was just kind of like, whoa. So we moved to Virginia with my family. We raised our kids, the young ones we had, and so yeah, it was. We ended up on a farm, and we had a little house, and that was the crawl space that I was like, I can figure this out, and it became a real challenge. Like, how do you do this correctly? So I'm kind of a relational person, but I also have a kind of a technical side that I really like to make sure things are done right. And that was one thing that, we went to get the training, and then I wanted to get some mentoring and get some on-the-job experience. And so I worked with a friend of mine in Asheville for a little while, and then I went to Hurricane Florence down in Wilmington. And I was a little green to be heading into a cat zone like that. But it's like let me just kind of paint a picture of like how you have to approach things. And in the fire service, in EMS, if you're complaining of something, asthma or whatever the problem might be, the EMTs come in and they take your vital signs, they do an assessment, they're in the field, so they only have limited stuff that they can do. But after all that, they give you the information and they say, ma'am, this is what we see, this is the vital signs, this is what we think is going on, we think you should go to the hospital. Or they might say, that might be optional. So they give you the information and then let you decide, right? Well, I take the kind of a similar approach that what we do when we go out and we do an inspection on something like a mold job or a water job where somebody's like, they're very devastated that this is going on. It could be an emergent situation, flooding everywhere, or it might be like, no, I know that's a mold problem and I've got to deal with that, but just tell me what you think. So it's challenging, right? But if you go in with the mindset of, we're going to do the very best visual inspection and an assessment that we can with what we have, then we're going to give you that information, and then you can then decide what you want to do based with good information. And that's a good recipe because it puts the customer first. It puts them in charge, right? You don't want to be told that, oh, we're going to have to come and rip out this, or we're going to have to do this or that. How you deliver information in an emergency is very important. Let me repeat that for all my industry peers who might be looking at this. How you deliver information is really important. And when you're talking to somebody who's in an emergent situation, you have to be careful. You have to be gentle. You have to meet them where they are. And so, those skills that have been in thousands of homes over the years on EMS calls, you have to be careful with things like that. So that's kind of like where I came from in the industry, and that's how I started in this business. And all those emergency calls have helped me, and the guys that I trained too, have helped us to kind of meet people where they are and assess the information as best we can. And then when we find, sometimes you get into like a can of worms. I mean, I'm telling you, sometimes there's, it's not just like easy peasy,
Right.
okay? And yeah, okay, well, what you need to know as a person in my industry is you need to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody who's smarter than you.
Yeah.
And if you have the humility to do that, that's going to work to your benefit. Because if I had somebody coming in my house, I would love for them to be able to do that. I want to know an encyclopedia of information from just this one person. If they've got access to all that and they can give me good information, and I can decide, oh yeah, the price will be this or the price will be that, whatever it is, at least I know I'm getting quality info.
When we were talking earlier, you sounded like you were actually get very excited about different types of mold.
Yeah, okay,
You were
so
talking a lot about mold and like the different molds in the house. What are the things that are typically found in like basically everyone's home? I'm sure that if you went into any of our houses, you'd probably find something.
Hey.
But what are the things?
Keep your hands off my mold.
What are the things that are typical that you usually find?
So well, we could go down the rabbit hole of, you know, this kind or that kind, genus and species and all that stuff. And I would tell you that there's some people that really want that information. Mold is in the air. It's everywhere, pretty much all the time. And what happens, and I'll just try to keep this simple. What happens when we get inside buildings is that it gets in areas where it gets in high concentrations and it starts to grow, or you know, it's not able to get the windows aren't you know, there's not enough HVAC that's, you know, taking the condensation off the windows. We could get into all kinds of things, but basically you don't really need to like worry. I don't really want to worry about what kind of mold it is. To me, it's like we can spend money to figure that out and lab reports and everything, but it might be better to spend that money to clean it and remove it and get it out of harm's
You mean
way.
you don't just tell people it's black or it's green?
Well, they can see that. They usually can see that if it's black or green, and they're asking, like, what kind of mold is that? And it's like, well, that's the kind that's bad.
It's mine that has to go away.
I mean, you know, here's the thing. So we've already said, you know, there's mold in the atmosphere. It's all around all the time, but it's in the concentrations. And when they do the testing, they do parts per million is what they, they find out how many parts per million is in this room, for example, of this particular species. And they take it to a lab and they figure that out. But if you see something growing on the wall or the ceiling or the floor or something, you know, what does that tell you? Okay, that tells you a couple things. It tells you that it's in high enough concentration that it's growing and that's visible, and that's millions of spores, usually, especially if it's, you know, 12 inch by 12 inch. It's a significant colony of mold. It needs to be cleaned, right? That's pretty obvious. What also it's telling you is that the humidity in the atmosphere in that room, or if it's a room or a house or whatever, that's been high. And so my go-to on humidity levels in houses is just 50%. In crawl spaces, 50%. If you can keep it under 50%, that's great. And I'm sorry if I'm moving too much for the mic or whatever.
You're doing great.
So 50%, and relative humidity is it's relative. Okay, so that's a percentage. But when we talk about when guys in my industry, when we're actually measuring how much water's in the air, we measure it a little bit differently. We have another measuring scale that our meters figure out, and I won't go into all that. But let me just summarize by saying, you know, mold is there, and I get interested in it because I think the reason I get interested in it is because it's such it's a health hazard. It's kind of a hazard. When we remediate mold, we're remediating it almost the same way that they do asbestos. Okay, we're using the same equipment. We're using the same kind of containment and engineering controls. We're doing a lot of the same stuff, so it's kind of a hazmat. We treat it that way. We wear, you know, suits and masks and stuff like that. And I'm talking about a fairly large job. If it's a small job, then it may be a small containment. But one of the things the nuggets I don't want to go on. Did you have anything?
No, you're doing great.
Go on
Yeah.
and on.
You're the best. I mean,
So you want me to go? Okay. So what I would just say is that, okay, a takeaway from this conversation. If you have cardboard in your crawl space, get rid of it. Okay. A mold loves cardboard. Okay. If you have cardboard in your basement, might be better to take the stuff that's in there. If it's valuable to you, take the stuff that's in there that's valuable to you and put it in a plastic bin or something that's not gonna, you know, or crack. Cardboard is very cellulosic and it will grow mold like that. Okay, so so cardboard. That's the first takeaway. Second takeaway is try to manage your humidity in your home. And the little dehumidifiers that they sell at the big box stores, those are fine. They can work. They have to be managed well, and I've seen some people do that well. But it's a pain sometimes to do that. You know, another thing is you know, the whole house dehumidifier. You know, I would say, you know, buyer beware on things that are add-ons, stuff like that. Because if you add something to an HVAC system that wasn't designed to have more drag on that, and disclaimer, I'm not an HVAC guy, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a lot of things, but I have a lot of common sense in terms of putting things together and finding stuff that's been messed up. Just be careful about using, maybe adding some equipment to your system at home.
How do you
Let's see.
dehumidify a crawl space?
Okay,
blow
great
on it.
question. The question, how do you dehumidify a crawl space? The reason you hear all these people that want to encapsulate and so there's some different terminology I'm going to throw out here. Encapsulation, remediation, and dehumidification, and waterproofing. Okay, so let's start with waterproofing. If you have a bulk water problem in your crawl space, you've got to get rid of that water. Okay, it's coming in somehow, some way. It's getting in there. It's staying in there. Bad, right? So you got to figure out a way to do the waterproofing. Get the water out. So that usually involves a sump and a pump, and it gets out of there. That's the first part. The next thing in crawl spaces is the encapsulation. And remediation is the next part. So you remediate the floor joist system and the subfloor, and you clean that. You basically clean the mold off of there, and it needs to be removed. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but we won't get into those because I have personal opinions that I won't share right here, right now. That's another conversation. But the next thing after that is encapsulation. And encapsulation is, what is the goal? I did a video on this on our YouTube channel. Not a plug for myself, but a shameless plug for myself. Our YouTube channel about the goal of encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is, the goal of it is to air seal the crawl space. So how do you do dehumidification in a crawl space? Because it's open vents and stuff, right? Well, the first thing is you got to close all that stuff off. And if you're going to close it off, you have to clean what's in there, but then you're sort of like bringing that into the building envelope. In other words, instead of it being open at the bottom and having the insulation up top, you're kind of like closing it off, and you can have the insulation there or on the perimeter walls, but the goal of encapsulation is to air seal it. Because if you air seal it, then the 90% humidity that's outside can't get into your crawl space, right? And so you've got a vapor barrier, and you've got once you air seal it, and you sealed off the vents, and you've got insulation on the band area between the joists and stuff, and then you bring in a dehumidifier. Now you can actually dehumidify the air that's in there because it's not new air coming in that's high in humidity. So you place a dehumidifier in there, and you provide for that condensation line to go and get exited out. And then the great thing about those is that you can put in, next to your thermostat, you can put a readout that tells you what the humidity level is in your crawl space, so you can see. So this is a thing that a lot of people don't get. They're just like, they're sold in an encapsulation. They're not really sure why. Well, yeah, it's to air seal that space down there. And we will circulate air around with the use of a dehumidifier because it has an intake and a discharge, and it's kind of moving air through it. And that's good for, keeping the humidity low.
Do you guys do that, or do you just come in and after everything is just a wreck? Or do you guys?
Oh, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do part of that or all of that. We can give you options on that. And as I'm trying to show you right here, we're trying to add value by educating you guys
Right.
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
right now.
I don't have
So-
to wait till I have a disaster to give Bodi a call.
No.
Great.
No.
Do you find that like newer houses have that encapsulation included in construction, or?
It's usually, they think of it, but it's not usually always done.
Okay.
It just depends on the builders. Sometimes they like, absolutely, they build it to the nines and they do all this stuff in the beginning, and that's the best time to do it because when the house is brand new,
Right.
So easy.
it's perfect, right? But it's more expensive to do that. It
Right.
adds cost to the house, and it's not cheap to do. It's hard work to do, especially if you've got here's another nugget. You got to take it with this away. If you have a house, or if you know of somebody's house, or you have investment homes, or whatever, and I've talked to some of the people in our group about this. They know this is one of my pet peeves is your gutters and your downspouts. And we live in Central Virginia, right? And there's a lot of water here. As opposed to the desert where I came from, there's a ton of water that we get rained on and also that comes up out of the ground. So you need to make sure that your water that's coming out of your downspouts, first of all, that they're clear. And second of all, visually inspect when it's raining. Go outside and look. Make sure the water that you think is coming out of your downspout is going into the a lot of houses have these little channels or these little tubes that go, conduits that go out, away. Make sure that that's not full and that it's not overflowing next to your foundation. Bad, right? So check that, and also make sure that you're exiting the water from the downspout at least 10 feet from your foundation. So that's if your gutters are working great, that's good. But make sure that the water is coming from downspouts, getting far enough away so it's not causing you a problem underneath.
Right.
See, because you see how this cycle works? It's kind of like this.
So many new builders don't use the pipes anymore. They just, it's a little splash guard and they're running right out there.
So we've talked a lot
Good for
about
both
water and
business.
mold, but you guys do lots of different services. You don't just do mold and water. You do lots of different services. What kind of other services do you do?
So we do water damage. We've kind of there's a lot of people in this town that do emergency water damage mitigation work. So we do that. We're happy to do that. But we focus on a lot of mold work and a lot of crawl space solutions for folks. And that is, I mean, it's just so, people just don't understand why, why is there mold? Why is this a problem? Why, you tell me that, mold's the problem in my crawl space. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons why is because 50% of the air that's in your house comes through your crawl space. So is it a problem? I don't know. You tell me if it's a problem for you, because you might not be calling me if it wasn't. I don't know. Basements too. Basements can be an issue as well. But
So we have to talk about our silly question of the week.
Wait, I have one for you.
Okay.
How was your birthday?
Oh, my birthday was great. Thank you so much. It was
Thursday.
My birthday was Thursday. You were not here, so
Yeah.
you were not here to tell me happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And I went to dinner on Sunday night to Marigold. It was really good. If you've never
Nice.
been, you should totally go. It was so delicious. But yeah, it was a good birthday.
Good.
All right, so I have a silly question
Okay.
for the week, and it's a really silly one.
Uh-oh.
But I've been trying to figure out what to ask that wouldn't be like sad and depressing, because we'd ask about disaster, right? And I've had lots of disaster in my family and in my life. I'm a Katrina evacuee, and there's all sorts of stuff. So I didn't want to ask anything like that. So I decided to ask, what is your favorite disaster movie?
Oh, wow. Can you give an example?
Well,
Like Twister?
Like Twister, yeah.
Okay.
Twister's a disaster movie.
Bodi.
that's a good question.
Yeah. I've thought about a couple of
Oh,
them,
I got
some
one.
really silly ones and some.
I just saw it for the first time as an adult, and it was Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters is a disaster movie. I would say it's pretty
good.
Do you remove slime?
Ectoplasm.
There's some things I just can't help you with.
Green mold. That's
Green
what it
mold,
is.
yes, green
It's just
mold.
green mold.
What's your favorite disaster movie, Nathan?
Give me a second. Come back to me.
Is it the one about your life?
I want to say my favorite one was the Titanic, but that's not really the
Well,
house disaster. It
I was thinking about a couple of them, one silly one and one that I don't think I've ever actually seen all the way through, and one really good one. The good one I was thinking of was The Perfect Storm with the fishing
Oh, yeah.
boat. I thought that one was a really good one. It was so sad they all die at the end, but
Yeah.
the funny one I was thinking of was Sharknado.
oh man.
That's a pretty good disaster
Yeah,
movie.
That's a disaster. You could say Jaws.
Mars Attacks.
There we go.
Oh,
yeah.
Mars Attacks. That's a
There you
good
go.
one.
That's a disaster.
That is a disaster.
I'll go with Mars Attacks.
or the attack of the 50-foot woman.
That's a great one.
Oh yeah, see,
Great one.
Remember that
there's
one?
lots of really good disaster movies.
Who's the 50-foot woman? Is it
It's me.
No, she did Splash, right? Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can-
my
you
kids,
can
my
Google that
kids
one.
would say the Lego Batman movie where they're about to blow up the city. It's a pretty
There's
good
so
movie.
many-
If you
there's-
haven't seen the Lego Batman movie, oh my God, you have to
Stretching the
watch it.
genre.
Oh, I love that one.
Stretching the
Oh my God,
genre.
right?
Lego Batman.
It's a great movie.
Well, if you guys want
Absolutely.
to discuss disaster movies, we'll be here again tomorrow night in the Star Hill Lounge for our monthly event.
Yeah, and where can we find Bodi?
We will find Bodi there.
No, but I mean, like you already just say you.
He will be there.
Bodi will be there, and you can find, actually, I try to put the other guys out in front of me. I try to stay in the back because I've got some really good guys. And we're always trying to add more people, not just guys. But H20 Disaster Services, can be found at h2odisaster.com. And that's H2O like the letter O,
Letter, off the number.
disaster.com.
Or you can see that cool van of yours and just follow it around town.
And you guys are
could stop
not
us.
a franchise, right? This is.
No, we are not a franchise.
It is one of the best local
Branded,
logos,
yeah.
branded
Yeah.
things going. I mean, you would think, well, that's obviously some big national group, but it's you. That's kudos.
It's just Bodi.
Thank you. There's a lot of thought that went into that, and I can't take responsibility for it, but I know some people who are
Yeah.
smarter than me. So
It's awesome.
yeah, thank you all
So-
for having us here, having me here. Let me.
Yeah, and I hope
talk.
you're going to join us tomorrow for the fundraiser for Love No Ego here
Yep.
at Star
Yes.
Hill. And we have Sydney doing headshots and videos. I think all the slots are starting to really fill up. So
Yep.
if you want one, you need to go
going like
online
hotcakes.
and actually sign up. If you just show up thinking you're going to get one done, then Sydney's going to have to see you some other time.
Yeah, I'll take it on my iPhone, but
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah, so primp up, wear your best top and or your best shirt, and come out to have your headshots and support Love No Ego and Freddie, one of our members, and have some beers with us. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm getting off here before I have another coughing attack.
Thank you so much, Fody. It was great.
Thank you, Bodi.
Thank you.